Doug and I both pulled a few things that we have here down here in the nursery for the plant sale. I looked at this from a person who lives in an apartment, what I could use in my planter boxes or in a small container that I put on my patio or on my porch. So I'm kind of a little bit different view than what some other people are doing. But I have a lot of color that I could use for this winter in containers. We have one of the small growing honeysuckles of all things, Lonicera nitida, and I don't remember the cultivar name.
Golden Glow.
Golden Glow, thank you. I'm not going to remember the names on the cultivars, but anyways, great plant that you can use in a small container on your, like I said, patio or deck or whatever. It also works great in a park shade garden right in the ground. I'm going to guess this cultivar is probably going to get you around 3 to 4 feet. There are some that get bigger than that out in the Pacific Northwest. They never do that here, so they stay much more compact. Easy growing plant. What I like about it is the texture. It's a gold edge to the leaves, more or less, and it's really nice contrast to things like this heuchera here. This is heuchera fire alarm. When Dennis said that we had a heuchera and it was red, I'm thinking, oh, what's its parentage? It probably doesn't have the one that's important for us here, but it does. This is a hybrid with heuchera villosa, which is a southern species of coral bell that does really well here, and their hybrids do really well here. This is one. Look at the combination of that red leaf against the honeysuckle here. Wonderful combination for the winter. This the tones on the leaves will change a little as the temperature changes, but great in containers or in the ground. Well-drained soils. They don't want to be in a wet soil. I could put that in my planter boxes on my porch right now. And at this time of the year, I need to start thinking about swapping them out. Next to it, I have another low-growing shrub. This is actually one of the Japanese hollies, and it's an Ilex crenata, and I cannot say the name of this one to save my life, probably. It starts with a K.
Kufurin.
It's but it's another one. You could use it very much like the Lonicera nitida. Golden Glow there. It's going to stay tight. This is a low growing one. Really nice accent plant for part shade to full sun. I'd say probably tops out 3 feet, maybe 4 feet. It's going to be a real compact growing Japanese holly for us here.
Yeah, and Japanese hollies are real easy here. You just want to make sure the soils are well drained, not excessively drained, but avoid a poorly drained soil.
It'd be perfect to go with the heuchera. Yeah. And again, that one's small enough you can use in a container or right in the garden. Again, for the winter months to put with the heuchera and stuff, we have some sedums. This is a sedum rupestris, and let's go with the trade name on this one if I can find it actually. Moon Shadow. I won't go for the real name, which is probably letters and numbers. But a lot of the sedum rupestris have these really nice conifery-looking foliage, and it's gold. And again, really good contrast to the texture of the heuchera leaves or the Lonicera.
And the sedums are evergreen, so you have that colorful foliage.
And sometimes they'll get a bronzing to them in the cold weather too, which is really nice. And again, it'll pick up the same tones that you have in the heuchera here. We also have some wallflowers, which winter and wallflowers, they're great here for us. And into the early summer, short-lived perennials, but they're really well worth planting. This is a new red one. From Ball, if I remember right. Sugar Rush Red is the trade name that you're going to find it under. These are going to have blue-green foliage right now, but they're going to have this kind of brick red. Again, it's going to go really well with the heucheras. And these will all take the same conditions through the winter months here. Another perennial here, work in the ground or in a container, are some of the euphorbias, and this is Euphorbia polychroma. Great blue-green foliage mounding in the winter. And then come spring, you get bright yellow flowers all over that. Another great texture are some ferns. We have the Asplenium scolopendrium, the hart's tongue fern, Northern European mostly, or actually Northern Hemisphere, it's native to the whole Northern Hemisphere. Only found a few places in North America. I think it wants a little bit of a limey soil. So to use this, it could be great in a rock garden where there's, or near concrete block of all places. It really likes it in the lath house. It's starting to sporulate in the lath house. So we're getting some populations on them in there. I like on the rocks. Again, great contrast.
And
Tim, you forgot the most important thing about the asplenium.
What?
Oh, come on. What's the question everybody asks? Do deer eat it?
Probably not. It's a fern. Most ferns are safe, which is great.
Yeah, the ferns evolved long before dinosaurs did. So a lot of ferns were wiped out by dinosaurs, and the ones that still survived, the dinosaurs didn't eat. So deer don't eat them either.
So
I was there.
The last plant that I have is actually one that's kind of sentimental to me. I collected the spores for this on a trip in 2019 before COVID to New Mexico. So this is from the deserts of New Mexico, but it's a species. This is Pelea atripurpurea, which is also native here to North Carolina. Really cool. It's a sun fern, but again, I have my porch on my deck, or my porch at my apartment, for instance. It bakes in the afternoon. I haven't put one of these in my containers yet, but I want to. But the contrast between the heucheras or any heuchera and the blue-green foliage on this sun fern, this Pelea, I think would be really cool. And it's an evergreen again. So those are some of the things I selected to talk about.
And I'm going to ask you a question.
Sure.
When they were younger, and we had them in the nursery all winter long, they were very blue. Is that something they'll show every spring, or was that just?
That's probably on the sterile fronds versus the fertile fronds, which come up later in the year. There aren't any spores on this by chance. Very fertile.
That's Tim doing his usual.
But I think the spores make it look variegated on the back underside. It's really cool fern,
like the variegated autumn ferns.
Yes. Oh, and I forgot. I have a couple other things here that I wouldn't necessarily use these in my planter boxes, but these are great native plants. One here, you all need these in your garden, and I know many of you are already growing these. This is Asclepias tuberosus, the butterfly weed. We don't always get them looking really nice. They're hard to grow in a pot, but our supplier this year was able to get us some really nice plants in. So we have these available. These your monarchs will be enjoying next summer if you plant them in. So great plant there, full sun, well-drained soils. Can't go wrong with that. And one of our native Coreopsis here, this is Coreopsis auriculata, and then the dwarf form called Nana, or is it Nanus? I can't remember. Nana. So these actually start flowering really early in the spring, if I remember correctly. And it only gets about 8 to 10 inches tall, maybe, if the flower stalks, probably more than 8 inches. But really low growing Coreopsis, easy for a nice edge, full sun, part shade. I think they're woodland species, so they grow on woodland edges in the wild. So it's a little more tolerant when someone else leans over top of them and doesn't shade them out and kill them like some of the other smaller perennials. So just a great little one. Starts early, like I said, so for those early pollinators to get going, but it also goes late too. So and real long season.
If you've shied away from Coreopsis because a lot of them are not very long-lived, this one is a perennial that you should have for years, provided your conditions aren't abominable. And it's also evergreen, so you have this handsome green foliage year-round.
All right, moving over to Doug.
Well, and we'll continue with natives before we jump to Asia. This is a native shrub, a ground covering shrub. It spreads slowly underground. This is Durvilla. The Durvillas are common name is bush honeysuckle. And a lot of people tremble in fear when they hear the word honeysuckle because they think it's a vine that's going to take over the world. But the bush honeysuckles are not vines, they're little shrubs, just as most honeysuckles are shrubs and not vines. This is a selection with bright yellow foliage, and I grabbed one without a label, but if you go on to the plant cell
honeybee or something, honeybee or something like that.
Honeybee sounds right. It's a good plant for pollinators. They're not. The floral display isn't super showy, but it is with the colorful foliage. It's colorful all summer.
It's actually really closely related to white gillies.
Oh, that makes sense because the flowers are very much like white gilly, just fewer and smaller.
Tinier.
Yeah, but fairly tolerant of dry growing conditions as well.
You'll see species growing out in the mountains all over the place.
If you, this is a really beautiful member of the Aralia family. So the same family as Fatsia and English ivy. It's a large shrub in time, I guess maybe like 8-10 feet tall. It's Metapanax delavei, and the leaves are pinnately compound, very much like marijuana. So if you want to, irk the neighbors and make them think you're growing marijuana, this is the plant to grow. It's evergreen, handsome foliage plant. It does have the typical Aralia family inflorescence of little heads of small white flowers, followed by black. This is a plant that we propagated from the Arboretum and grew here. This is Psychoporodia purple haze. Psychoporodia is a hybrid between two genera, Porodia, which is the Persian ironwood, which is deciduous, and its other parent is Psychopsis. So it's largely evergreen. In the colder winter, it might lose its leaves late in winter. There's a fair amount of purple in the newest growth in the spring, or when it has a flush of growth in the summer. It's a member of the witch hazel family, and the flowers are small and reddish.
You'll find those in February and March.
Yeah, it's quite early blooming. Let's see. The genus Hydrangea is large. This is a fairly uncommon one, Hydrangea hirta. Tim, help me with the common name for this one.
Hydrangea.
No.
I don't know. I don't know the common name for that.
Doug, we call it like powder puff bush or something like that, blue powder puff, because when you call it a hydrangea, people get upset when they see it flower. And but if they don't know it's a hydrangea, they like the flower.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have the large infertile florets.
And Mark, isn't it almost evergreen?
Yes, it depends on the selection, because it grows fairly high elevations. So it really depends on where it's coming from. And I can't remember with this one for sure.
And we have some really interesting vines in the sale. And some of these plants are new to us as well. So we can just relay the information we've read. This is, the genus is Sabia, Sabia. And it's Sabia schumaniana, obviously named for somebody with the family name of Schumann. It's a close kiwi relative, but evergreen. The edible kiwis are deciduous in this climate. Beyond that, I don't have more to add, but
it looks like it has some really cool, the petioles on the leaves are all red.
Yeah, and the foliage is handsome. And, kiwi flowers are somewhat showy. Perhaps this is even showier, but a lot of the times the Arboretum makes available plants that we don't know all that much about, but you all can be part of the experiment.
Mark, was this one of Dan's collections?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and it's one I don't know much about. So like Doug said, we got them for the sale because I wanted to get one for us. And there you go.
And we have a number of Hoboelias, which are very closely related to Stauntonia. And Dennis can correct me. I think we have 3 Hoboelias and 1 Stauntonia in the sale.
Stauntonia hasn't arrived yet.
Yeah.
I think right now we're dealing with just 2 Hoboelias on site.
Yeah, and they're very handsome evergreen vines. I know the Hoboelias we have in the garden are quite showy in bloom, clusters of smaller flowers. And they share a common name of sausage vine. So if you're a vegan, don't be reluctant to buy one of these because no animal products were involved. The fruits are sausage shaped and they are edible in that you open the fruit and you eat the juicy pulp around the seeds. You don't eat the skin. The skin is very leathery. And I didn't ever tell you who this is. This is Hoboelia angustifolia subspecies trifoliata. You see the leaves are three-parted.
And those I ordered for the sale because I want to get them for my own garden. I love them because they'll take some shade and you can grow them all through your woodlands.
They flower real early in the season too.
This is one of the other Hoboelias in the sale, Hoboelia brachyandrus. They shed some leaves in shipping, but I do think it's normally evergreen. Mark might have something to add to that. And this is Helwingia. Helwingia sort of been moved from one family to another by those who classify plants. At times has been in the same family as Sakuba, and both of them at times have been in the dogwood family, the Cornaceae. I don't know where it is.
It's in Helwingiaceae right now.
Oh, it's now in its own family, the Helwingiaceae. This is an evergreen species. Helwingia omeiensis from Mount Omei in China. Mark, do all of them bear the flowers right on the leaf blade?
Yeah, they all flower. They all flower like that, right in the middle of the leaf.
Yeah, it's a real curious thing. So you see this perfectly normal looking leaf, but in the spring when they bloom, they'll have little flowers right on the leaf blade.
And if you have two of opposite sexes, you can get fruit and it'll sit right on the leaf too. If you have a girl.
I'd love to see that.
These are supposedly, according to Dan, these are self-fertile females.
Oh, cool. Cool.
Okay.
I make no promises.
I hope all of you in the audience adopt one of these, but I hope we end up with one for the garden. And very special little rhododendron collected in the high elevation cloud forest of northern Vietnam. We think there's a good chance it wouldn't be winter hardy, but maybe it's something that could be grown in a pot and moved into the garage in the winter or something where it had some light. But pretty glossy evergreen foliage, real scaly, like many rhododendrons leaves. And we saw a photo of the parent plant with large white flowers.
Fragrant too.
And fragrant.
Just to add to that, I'm growing a lot of species rhododendrons that I have always been told won't tolerate our heat, won't tolerate our winters. Now, we haven't had a real winter since I've been growing a lot of these, but we have had some real summers. And what I'm doing is growing them on a slope under high shade. And so they get some air movement. And I've been amazed, even some of the really huge leafed rhododendron. If you know your rhododendron, Sinofalconeri have survived for several years in my garden. So I was the first person who bought one of these to try out that way.
Anything else? Well, Mark, do you want us to go on? I don't know. I guess there's sort of a time limit.
I think that's probably good for now. It's just we just wanted to show everybody some of the plants. They are fantastic. When you're looking online at them, do check in the descriptions. They have a pot size, and so you know what you're going to get. It might be a pint or a 3.5-inch pot. It might be a 3-gallon or a 5-gallon pot. So it really, it varies. And if there's any, on a couple of occasions, plants, we might have them at different, slightly different stages, slightly different pot sizes. And whenever that happens, we default to the smaller size. So you'll only get a larger plant than what we say.